Printing, packing, faxing. The UPS Store can do any-ing and every-ing for small business. And of course, shipping.
Wow, that's really some ing.
The UPS Store. The UPS Store franchise locations are independently owned and operated. Services, pricing, and hours may vary. See Center for details.
This is a CBC podcast.
We have a better sense today of when Nova Scotians will be able to get their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Everyone 16 and older should be able to get their first shot by the end of June, as long as the federal deliveries stay on track. That was the big topic of discussion during today's COVID briefing. The CBC's Carolyn Ray was on the call and joins us now. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Jennifer.
Can you give us a bit more detail? How is it possible that everyone over 16 may have their first shots by mid-June?
So the federal deliveries are expected to go way up in the next few weeks. So let's put this into context. In December, when we started the rollout, we had just shy of 10,000 doses of vaccine. Next month, we're going to have 182,000, and in June, we're expected to more than double that with 416,000 doses. So we're about to see just a dramatic difference in a matter of a few weeks.
Now, once we reach that, what will the pace of the rollout be?
Well, the way Dr. Strang put it today was, we've gotten good and now we're about to get fast. So the supply is expected to be strong enough to do a complete cohort of 5 years of people in just a week. So if we're going by age, if you're 50 to 54, you can expect you can get your first shot the week of May 3rd. Then the next week, May 10th, they're going to cover everybody 45 and up. So it's going to move pretty fast in those 5-year increments every week. So, of course, as you mentioned earlier, all of this is contingent on those deliveries being on time. The province has set up this network of 200 pharmacies and doctors' offices that will deliver the bulk of that vaccine. And you might remember a few weeks ago, there were a lot of issues when people tried to book. The system was just overloaded with people wanting to book their vaccine appointments. So another call center is actually going to be set up and operational by mid-April to help deal with this upcoming surge in demand for booking.
Do we know where that call center will be?
I'm sorry, I don't. They didn't mention that
No, they
today.
didn't mention that yet. Okay. We've heard of a few smaller communities already having some trouble getting access, Northern Cape Breton, for example. What's the plan for that?
Yeah, and Dr. Strang acknowledged that today and said once all these clinics are up and running, that will solve most of the issues. And he says there's a plan in the works for the more remote areas.
That network of clinics will grow as our vaccine supply grows, and that should address most of the problems. There are some places in the province, a few places such as the northern part of Cape Breton Island, where we're working actively on some very specific solutions. So no part of the province will be kind of left behind in terms of geographic access. There's a couple of places that need some very specific solutions that we're working on.
Right, so that's Dr. Strang. And so when he says everyone in the province over 16 should have access to the first shot of the vaccine by the end of June, that includes those people in those remote areas of Northern Cape Breton.
Is there any more thought to bumping up those who are high risk with underlying conditions?
Well, that is just a constant question that is being put to Dr. Strang. I know we've talked about it many times, but I think it bears repeating his answer because people are still questioning it. So if you compare us to many other provinces, they are actually prioritizing people with underlying conditions like Ontario. But today, Strang once again gave the message that he's been saying all along. Take a listen.
And as we vaccinate people by age, we are rapidly building a wall of immunity around people with health conditions until they themselves can get the vaccine. Focusing on age is the best way to meet our goal of building a high level of population immunity against COVID-19 as fast as possible. This is how every adult in Nova Scotia will have their first dose within the next 3 months.
So that's Dr. Strang explaining why Nova Scotia is not going to change direction. Those with underlying health conditions will have to wait to be vaccinated with their age group.
So if the bulk of people have their first shots by the end of June, does that mean we can finally see an end to the restrictions?
Unfortunately not. As excited as I know many people want to be, you have to keep in mind there's 2 doses to each of these vaccines. So while we should all have our first shot by the end of June, it will take 4 more months before we all get that second shot. So if you do the math, that's October we're looking at. And, another big question that we still don't know is if you're vaccinated, can you be an asymptomatic carrier? So could you potentially give COVID to someone who has not received the vaccine? So there are studies on the go looking at that question, and Strang says we should have more answers on this in the next 2 to 3 months. But in the meantime, here's his sobering reality check.
But I also think we're going to have to live with some type of personal and family COVID protocols, as well as collectively having things, whatever the necessary levels of quarantine, etc., on people entering the province from other parts of the country, perhaps, or other parts of the world. So we're not out of the woods by all means. I think I need to. While I'm cautiously optimistic, we're going to be having to living with COVID for a number of months, and then probably longer term, COVID is going to be with us for the long term. We don't really know what the future is at in terms of whether we're going to need a booster dose, or maybe we have kind of like a flu vaccine approach, and what type of COVID protocols we all have to live with, especially in the winter months.
So while it's great that the vaccines are here, it is still too soon to plan a big celebration.
Obviously, vaccines took center stage during the briefing today, but were there any other noteworthy moments?
Yeah, so on the lines of celebrations, there was a question today, I'm sure it's on the minds of many parents, about what's going to happen to grads and proms this year. So Dr. Strang says schools are going to focus on graduations. He says it's too soon to know what protocols will be in place at that time, so nothing is set in stone. But schools really want to honor the academic achievement of the students. And as for proms, that will actually be up to families and communities to plan. Again, Strang stresses that any celebration will have to follow gathering limits for May and June when they're announced. And when we get closer to that time, he knows these families are frustrated, but that's the reality of our current conditions.
Thank you for bringing this to us today, Carolyn.
No problem. Thanks, Jennifer.
That's the CBC's Carolyn Ray. If you want to see the full chart that estimates when you will be able to get your first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, you can visit our website, cbc.ca/ns.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.